12 notorious 80s action movies that are so bad, they're good. Those were the days. People could get away with just about anything in the name of entertainment, and they didn't have to worry about offending any random person out there. Yes, we are talking about the blissful era of the 80s, when entertainment was carefree and we appreciated guilty pleasures. We had some timeless classics as well, but there was a free-flowing system of movies packed with mindless fun. The era was notoriously famous for delivering some of the most dangerous action and horror movies because the makers did not shy away from cheesy content. In fact, some of the most popular B-movies and action-packed entertainers did not care much about realism and went all out in terms of entertainment.
Let's you and me have a little talk, friend. What? Yeah! Where'd you get that?
The movies might not be thought-provoking or be as deep as the Mariana Trench, but they sure as hell knew their way around. They would take your stress and throw it right out the window. You've probably gotten the drift by now. We are going to explore some of the most ridiculous but fun 80s action movies that are not meant to be taken that seriously. Some of the movies on our list have a dash of horror and dollops of action and comedy. Those were the great 80s anyway. Get ready for a tacky trash fest because life isn't meant to be serious all the time. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you, and let's begin. The Barbarian, 1987. Ever since the grand success of the film Conan the Barbarian, sword and sorcery flicks became quite popular in the 80s. The idea was to portray a hulking, muscular hero who would fight the evil forces with his brute force and righteousness. The Barbarian is one such addition to the collection, and the movie tells the story of two young orphans who were adopted by a tribe. They grew up to be powerful gladiators who were then capable enough to get their revenge on an evil warlord, Kadar, who had kidnapped the queen of their tribe and ruthlessly slaughtered many others. Now, their mission is to rescue their queen and restore the tribe to its former glory. As the two mighty heroes go ahead to meet their nemesis, things boil down for an action-packed final showdown. Does the story sound familiar? That's because it is. You have heard this narrative multiple times, and the movie adds nothing spectacular to the familiar plot. However, on the bright side of things, the director Ruggero Deodato never takes the script seriously and makes it an enjoyable affair. The narrative moves at a brisk pace, and there are several scenes of intense sword fights that keep things interesting. There are also a few instances of splatter and gore, but nothing too graphic. The cast enjoys their performances in the campfest, and the likes of David Paul and Peter Paul are decent leads.
Me? You. Fatty! Who you calling fatty, moosehead?
The heroes here are fools, but they are muscular and powerful enough so no one cares. The tongue-in-cheek humor keeps you hooked, and the heroic duo is quite the rescue team. At times, it is hard to believe that the same director who made Cannibal Holocaust is the one behind this comical sword and sorcery drama. The dialogues are crazily inept, and they will have you laughing your butts off. To add to the spice, the makers have also thrown in some cheesy fantasy monsters, like the dragon with adorable eyes and the werewolf-like creatures. The makeup effects are adequately campy, and the movie is gloriously goofy the entire time. Those who are seeking something serious might want to look somewhere else, but the ones who are in the mood for some cheesy fun should hop on board. Enter the Ninja, 1981. American martial arts movies don't exactly have the best reputation, but Enter the Ninja. It changed the concept 360 degrees. The film revolves around a mercenary soldier named Cole, who was a part of the Angolan Bush War. He completed his ninjutsu training in Japan and then went to visit his friend Frank Landers and his wife Mary in the Philippines. Frank fought alongside him in the war, but now he is troubled by the local henchmen who have eyes on his land. When the leader of the local thugs learns that Cole is a trained ninja, he hires one of his own to fight him. It comes down to an intense battle to their death, and only the better skilled fighter will come out alive. It sure was nail-biting stuff. There is another reason why Enter the Ninja remains one of the most popular ninja flicks of the 80s. It has the credit of being one of the few Western movies that tackles this subject properly. We must acknowledge, though, that the plot is not very convincing and there isn't a lot of complication to spice things up. Well, this might not be a classic. It is all about the good fighting the corrupt.
And without help, so you will have to sell it.
We will find help, and we will not be selling.
If you are up for this recycled plot, you will pleasantly be surprised by the riches the narrative has to offer. Among the positives of this movie, the locations are definitely one of the highlights, and it makes it look like a foreign-made action flick. The direction by Menahem Golan is purposely dramatic, and it helps in capturing the true spirit of such B-movies. The cast is pretty impressive, and the likes of Christopher George and So Kosugi make their presence felt. The latter in particular is a popular Japanese star from the 80s, and he also starred in 2 sequels of the film. He is an expert when it comes to martial arts, and his skills are evident in the fight scenes. While there is some intense martial arts-based fighting in the movie, the final battle is the one to watch out for. It is so well choreographed that it almost looks like a big-budget drama for a second. In short, Enter the Ninja is a must-watch for all you martial arts lovers out there, and if nothing else, you will surely appreciate the intense sword fights that take place. Hell Comes to Frogtown, 1988. What do you expect to get when the hero of the story is called Hell?
Nowhere nice.
Got a name?
Hell. Sam Hell.
Well, for this movie, you get a badass protagonist and plenty of action. The story is premised in a world that is seeing the aftermath of a worldwide nuclear war. Now, over 68% of the world population is dead, and virile men are a rarity. The women have taken control of the new world, and Sam Hell is one of the prisoners taken by them. The nuclear war has also thrown in some adversaries, such as the deadly mutants roaming around. Humanity is threatened by extinction due to infertility and all the other threats around, unless something drastic is done quickly. Sam is tasked with the rescue of a group of fertile women who have been imprisoned by a mutant leader that looks like a frog. Sam Hell must obey the orders because a bomb has been attached to it and it will go off if he moves off track. What follows is an incredible adventure, the likes of which you haven't seen before.
Greeners can't have guns.
This excruciating B-movie action comedy is not a classic by the wildest stretch of imagination. However, it promises over an hour of harmless fun, the kind of which we all love to indulge in. Roddy Piper plays the role of the protagonist, Sam Hell, and the fans of wrestling will know him from his wrestling days. He was impressive in John Carpenter's They Live, and he does a fine job here as well. He certainly doesn't know the finer things about acting, but that doesn't stop him from enacting some charismatic moves, and boy is he good in the action scenes. There are plenty of showstoppers in terms of intense fights, and he steals the show with his effortless performance. Everything from the set designs to the jokes, and even the costumes are made for the laughs, and they succeed. The frog-like mutants look hilarious, and the story woven around them is deliberately goofy. The film was popular enough to power a few sequels along the way. They aren't as enjoyable as this one. It stays engagingly silly from the very beginning, and we strongly recommend this with a few mid-strength beers.
What's in the basket?
Basket Case, 1982. The movie starts off with a young man named Dwayne Bradley who walks into a motel room in New York with a strange-looking basket. It is also revealed that the basket contains his hideously deformed, formerly conjoined twin brother who was surgically removed. This brother of his is deformed to such an extent that the doctors who performed the surgery hesitated to consider him as a human. However, the deformed creature has an evil mind, and it turns out that he is the guiding force behind Dwayne's trip. He wants to get revenge on the doctors who separated him back in the day, and the sole purpose of this vile beast is to kill everyone he blamed. Things take a turn when Dwayne falls in love with the lady at the doctor's office, and now he wishes to start over with a new life. His freakish twin brother has some very different ideas that ensures a grim ending to the tale. Underestimate this as just another B-movie at your own risk. This horror and action drama has all the ingredients of solid entertainment, and the crisp narrative will hold your attention until the very end. The misadventures of a geeky and gullible young man and his twin brother have the right kinds of thrills, and it will keep you guessing the entire time. The bloodthirsty, misshapen monster looks absolutely grotesque, and his actions are unspeakable. Basket Case shines because of his atmospheric locations, and it gathered quite a cult following because of the bizarre plot. The director, Frank Henenlotter, puts his heart into the project, and even with a ridiculously small team, he puts things together effortlessly. The meager budget shows on the poor special effects, but the low-budget charm actually helps the movie and gives it the typical 80s feel. If we must complain about one thing, it has to be those moments where the film feels dragged. Editing the final version by a good 10 minutes would have done the trick. It certainly is more of an action drama and lacks the horror element, but we don't mind that one bit. In fact, the innovative killings and some intense action sequences only add to the entertainment value. There have been 2 sequels of this movie, but none match up to the brilliance of the original. Enjoy this sleazy and unpredictable movie with a couple of beers, and life will suddenly seem a lot simpler. The Wraith, 1986. A small desert town in Arizona is terrorized by Packard Walsh and his motorized gang. They force random drivers to drag race, and they win over their vehicles, adding to their fleet. Jamie Hankins is a decent teenager who appears to like a girl that Walsh wanted for himself. After catching Jamie get intimate with the girl, Walsh stabs him to death. Soon afterward, a mysterious man named Jake Kesey arrives in the town. He is a super cool biker, and he also has an invincible car. Jake befriends Jamie's girlfriend and also takes his brother under his wing. Moreover, he goes about a systematic killing of the local thugs who used to bully everyone around town. His ghostly black car challenges the members of the motorized gang to a race, and he eventually kills them off one by one. Neither the gang members nor the police can catch Jake in his mysterious car, but there might also be something supernatural about Jake's identity. Who is this righteous fellow bringing order back to this lawless town?
Holy shit!
The Wraith is an adorable effort to roll multiple things into a single movie, and we aren't complaining about the end result. There is a saying that if you have seen one of the 80s action horror flicks, then you've seen them all. Maybe there is some truth to that notion, but we feel that you will love watching them all individually. This movie, for instance, might have a storyline that you've heard of before, but the execution will ensure that your eyes are glued to the screen. First of all, watching a young Charlie Sheen as the protagonist is a treat. This was made before he became famous. His performance even then was quite promising. There are some breathtaking car scenes, and the roads are bound to remind you of the Mad Max movie. Besides the cars, you will enjoy some talented supporting actors delivering power-packed performances, and there isn't much not to like here. The writer and director Mike Marvin narrates the asinine story at a zippy pace, and the relatively impractical premise is treated with such seriousness that you would never realize the absurdity of the plot. The pounding rock soundtrack adds to the ambience of the movie, and this is one film that you wouldn't regret watching multiple times. Sometimes, feeling good is all you need, and The Wraith will certainly do that perfectly. Chopping Mall, 1986. Technology can be a blessing until it turns into a curse. A group of young couples learns this the hard way when they decide to have an after-hours party in the store in the Park Plaza Mall where they work. The mall has recently installed an advanced security system which is manned by 3 high-tech robots. Everything is fine until a lightning storm damages the computers that control the 3 robotic guards. The robot security system malfunctions, and the robots are turned into murderous machines that seek to kill anyone in their path. The 4 couples are now trapped with potential killers with no one around to help them out. The seemingly indestructible robots take out the victims one by one, and time is running out for the surviving members to find an escape route.
We've got to help her!
Thank you, and have a nice day.
What did you expect when you heard about an 80s B-movie titled Chopping Mall? The title of the movie is literally the summary for the entire film. The makers were well aware that they were dealing with something silly and cheesy, and they made no bones about it. and no efforts were made to tone down the over-the-top narrative. This movie is more of a parody of the typical slasher horror and action flicks back in the day, and a group of stupid teenagers trapped inside a mall seemed like the perfect premise to kick things off. While most of the movie is pretty dumb, you do have to appreciate a few moments of brilliance. There are some nail-biting times in the course of the narrative. And on the other hand, there were also some hilarious scenes. The young couples and their extremely dumb actions to deal with killer robots are definitely laugh-worthy. However, we were quite impressed with the look of the killer robots, especially taking into account the low budget of the film. The cast is not too shabby, and you will recognize the alluring Barbara Crampton among the lot. There are some fascinating kill scenes, and the body count keeps rising with time. If you are prepared to handle a fun-filled parody that doesn't take itself seriously, then this movie is a must-watch for you. The Toxic Avenger, 1984. Who says superhero flicks have to be serious? Along with this superhero action comes dark comedy. We are told a story of a social misfit named Melvin, who works as a mop boy at the Traumaville Health Club. He is repeatedly bullied and tortured, and it all comes to a point when he accidentally falls into a vat of toxic waste. This has some strange effects on his body, and his alter ego is created. Melvin becomes the Toxic Avenger, the local superhero who can stand up to corruption and bullies. The bad guys will have a lot to lose, and the corrupt mayor of the town must watch for the new hero on the block. This movie has Troma Studios stamped all over it, and the Notorious studio has done a remarkable job with this over-the-top superhero drama. The Toxic Avenger is so outrageously offensive that in today's time it would have been blasted on social media platforms. The horrible acting performances, the hilarious script, and the insane storyline makes for the perfect guilty pleasure that is enjoyable only because of its outrageousness. Welcome to the town of Traumaville, where bullies and sociopaths are everywhere. Their grisly acts are funny at times, but the arrival of a strange superhero makes it a laughing riot. There are plenty of politically incorrect things, and thankfully, people could get away with a lot back in the day. You will also find a generous dose of gore, and there are some pretty violent scenes that make the movie inappropriate for children. Even the Toxic Avenger takes down the bad guys in a rather graphic manner, sometimes ripping out their entrails or burning them in a microwave. The budget was obviously non-existent, and the cheap special effects look fascinating. In fact, with a little imagination, you would enjoy the rubbery effects even more. Loaded with terrible dialogues and outrageous gore, this Troma production would be the perfect number to relax with after a stressed day. Overall, The Toxic Avenger is undoubtedly trashy, but it went on to become a cult classic and certainly deserves to be watched. You're the Hunter from the Future, 1983. The story is premised in what looks like some kind of prehistoric wasteland, and Yor is a caveman who is traveling across the barren landscape. He arrives in a village, and his bravery and brute force saves the villagers from a deadly dinosaur attack. A feast is organized in his honor, but the troubles are far from over. A hostile neighboring tribe attacks, and it is Yor to the rescue once again. He also finds himself a damsel in distress, and something surprising changes things for him completely. He finds the same mysterious medallion that he wears on his neck on another woman who is supposedly a desert goddess, and this makes him curious about his real origins. He sets out with his new companions in search of his identity, and needless to say, the journey is full of some wonderful adventures. If you are thinking that cavemen and dinosaurs never coexisted, then this movie is not for you. Logic goes right out the window, and that is precisely the selling point of this film. The director, Antonio Margheriti, is well known among those who love such guilty pleasures, and he delivers us one cheap but entertaining drama. There are really no questions that this is a terrible movie, especially with the embarrassing performances and the laughable special effects. The makers knew that they were nowhere close to the money required to pull this off in grand style, and they chose to take the easier alternative, make it an absolute laugh riot. There are some genuinely fun moments, even in the so-called serious scenes such as the dinosaur attacks. The movie tries to impress with some gore and some intense battle sequences, but it is already a lost cause in the first 10 minutes. Imagine a campier version of Conan the Barbarian, and this exploitation flick is exactly that. All in all, this gloriously goofy cheese fest is supposed to be enjoyed without judgments, so go and watch this one, only if you're up for it. Ninja Terminator, 1985. An evil ninja clan is celebrating their 20th anniversary of ruling over the land. The leader of the ninja empire, Supreme Ninja, orders 3 of his finest warriors to get him pieces of a magical golden statue that, when united, gives the owner incredible powers and makes him impossible to defeat. However, the 3 warriors decide that is too much power for the tyrant, and they steal the pieces. Now, the Supreme Ninja sends out his forces after these rogue ninjas, and they have to find a way to keep the missing pieces hidden. After multiple twists and turns, the final outcome is revealed, and in order to get to that, you must sit through this martial arts action fest. Godfrey Ho is the unsung hero of cheesy ninja films, and Ninja Terminator is just another feather in his cap. Richard Harrison is one of his regular features, and this time around he brings in the actor to play one of the 3 heroic ninjas who dare to defy their oppressive leader. The story doesn't really make much sense, but you aren't in this for the rational side of things anyway. The narrative appears to be a bit jittery, mainly because it seems like footage from 2 different films has been fused together. However, what makes it worth your time are the countless inane moments that are sure to tear you up with laughter. The ninja warriors waste no time in displaying their sword fighting skills, and the fight scenes are well choreographed. Another hilarious moment comes when a toy robot menacingly delivers a videotape, and such outrageous scenes keep coming. The silliness is entertaining, which is why this movie makes this list. And if you throw in a few moments of gratuitous skin show and the awful dialogue, this becomes the perfect recipe for a fun movie night.
Old Jack always says, what the hell?
Big Trouble in Little China, 1986. Jack Burton is a truck driver, and he takes his friend Wang Chi to the airport to pick up his fiancée. Little did he know that things would take a remarkable turn, but it does so when Wang's fiancée is kidnapped on her arrival by a Chinese street gang. Jack and Wang go after the group, but they soon find out that there is more to the kidnapping than what meets the eye. David Lo Pan is an evil sorcerer, and he was cursed over 2,000 years ago that caused him to exist without a physical body. The only way out of the curse is to marry a woman with green eyes, and Wang's fiancée Mao Yin is the chosen one who fits the bill perfectly. Now, Jack must help his friend get back his lady love, and in doing so, he will take on a world of skilled fighters and supernatural forces. Could things be any more entertaining? Big Trouble in Little China is a big name among 80s action flicks, and it is regarded as one of John Carpenter's cult classics. When he comes together with the legendary Kurt Russell, you can expect some serious fireworks, and here you will not be disappointed. Funnily enough, Kurt Russell was skeptical about taking up this role because he was coming fresh from a string of flops. However, things turned around pretty quickly, with this one becoming a smash hit, and his role was remembered for years to come. The movie is not really plot heavy, but it doesn't need to be with all the things happening. The fast-paced narrative doesn't allow for any boring moments, and the action sequences provide enough of an adrenaline rush. In fact, the martial art bits are particularly well done, and the makers deserve some credit for the fight scenes. The effects are surprisingly good for its time, and they will go well with the badass one-liners from Kurt Russell himself. Forget realism for a while and get yourself a big tub of popcorn to enjoy this fun.
Have him kill me when I love him so much.
Maniac Cop, 1988. New York City is seeing a series of brutal murders, and the shocking part is that the killer seems to be a uniformed police officer. City Hall desperately tries to cover up the increasing death toll, and Frank McRae is tasked with leading the investigation process. One of the prime suspects in the case is a young cop named Jack Forrest, but this is merely a setup organized by the actual killer. Now, it is up to his girlfriend to team up with the detective and solve the case at the earliest to clear the name of innocent Jack. Will they succeed before the maniac cop killer strikes again? One of the first things that you will notice about this movie is the star cast. The likes of Bruce Campbell and Tom Atkins do a fabulous job, and the supporting cast was pretty impressive as well. The problem with the making of Maniac Cop was the ridiculously low budget, and this was an issue keeping in mind some of the things they had to pull off. This is probably the handicap that prevented the movie from becoming a properly made action thriller. The narrative is quick and crisp, and things get pretty grisly at times. The death scenes are short, but most of the characters are slaughtered through the movie. You will also get to enjoy a few tense chase scenes, and the police station massacre will stick with you for some time. We love the look of the deranged killer, and his methods were simply sickening. The movie has been directed in absolutely rip-snorting style by William Lustig, and a very witty script will keep you entertained. The popularity of this movie was enough to warrant a few sequels, but unfortunately, they did not do justice to the original. In short, if you are looking for a storyline that blends suspense, shock, and violence quite craftily, this might be worth checking out. Galaxy of Terror, 1981. A spaceship crash lands on a mysterious planet named Morganthus, and another spaceship is sent on a rescue mission. However, the second spacecraft also meets with a similar fate and crash lands on the planet. They are in for a rude shock when one by one the team members get slaughtered brutally. The ships are damaged, and the surviving members must find a way to escape from the horrors on the lifeless planet. They soon discover that the root cause behind all of the evil things happening around them is a strange pyramid-shaped object at a distance. Some unexplained force is using it to exploit the worst fears of the members against themselves, and it seems to be all over for the crew. Sci-fi action flicks have their way of keeping the audiences glued to the screen, no matter how unreal the storyline gets. This one, for instance, has a rather futuristic approach, and it is quite an impressive effort for a B-movie that was rather cash-strapped. This film has the look of Alien, and the dark and grim surroundings strike fear in the hearts of the bravest souls watching. Things start off pretty straightforward, and the narrative doesn't waste much time in getting straight to the point. The alien menaces are seen briefly, but they undoubtedly make things very interesting. There is no shortage of gore throughout the storytelling, and exploding heads and bodies being ripped apart are a normal sight. The final death scene is probably one of the most over-the-top sequences ever, and the sight of a body being crushed by animated tubing is quite disturbing. The cast members seem to have a lot of fun with this intense effort, and somewhere, the makers knew that apart from the looks of it, there was not much that they could recreate from Alien. Even then, the movie was good enough to gain a cult following, and it is one space horror become action flick that you might regret missing out on. The 80s were infamously known for many more such movies, and we simply couldn't get enough of these. Now that such content has dried up to a large extent, it is quite enjoyable to sit back to revisit the glory days. Do let us know in the comments below about some of your personal favorites from the 80s in this genre. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.
Goodbye, Mr. Burton.